Welcome. As we wait for our LinkedIn live streaming to start, please share in the chat your name and where you're joining from. We are thrilled to welcome you to our webinar, A Father's Place, the important role fathers and families have in their child's education. As we wait for our LinkedIn live streaming to start, we would love to know who's joining us today. So in the chat, please share your name and where you're joining from. Welcome, Shalonda, Ada from Chicago. Welcome, Barb. George in Boston, welcome. It's great to see all of you joining from various places. Melody from North Carolina, I'm in Charlotte. It's great to have you here. Great, Sylvia, Alexandra, we are thrilled to have all of you here today. Please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat and where you're joining from. We are going to get started. My name is Kim Igwe, and I'm the Professional Development Manager here at BranchEd. With that, I'm going to briefly share a little bit about BranchEd. BranchEd's commitment. Our commitment is to achieve sustainable programmatic transformation, leading to improved outcomes for diverse educators who, by extension, benefit all students by preparing them to thrive in our heterogeneous society. We believe that every student deserves access to caring, adaptive, and well-prepared teachers, that every teacher deserves preparation that fuses quality with diversity, and that every person benefits when we create a higher standard of education together. Thank you for joining us. We would love to know a little bit more about you now that we know your name and where you're joining from. We'd also love to know your role. There's going to be a poll that pops up on your screen. If you can share with us a little bit more information about you using that poll, we would love to know that. We have quite a mix here. We have a lot of higher ed faculty and administrators. We have some community partners. It's great to have you all here today. We are thrilled. If you haven't answered that poll yet, please do. It helps us to know who's in the room. Thank you so much. This is the fifth of BranchEd's 2023-2024 Nuts and Bolts webinar series. The series focuses on the educational ecosystem. At BranchEd, we believe transforming education happens within an educational ecosystem in which there is a strong connection and collaboration between and among stakeholders to ensure all children have the support they need to thrive. This ecosystem includes, but is not limited to, children, families, caregivers, community organizations, healthcare systems, local education agencies, post-secondary education providers, industry business partners, and government agencies. These stakeholders have unique and complementary roles that converge and diverge to benefit all children by preparing them to thrive in our heterogeneous society. Today's webinar will showcase how participants can effectively engage fathers and families to positively impact student outcomes, increase family engagement, and improve community support. Before we get started, I want to share a couple of housekeeping items. Please note that you can use the chat if you have any technical issues, and the Q&A if you have any questions. We will have 10 minutes at the end for some Q&A, so please just submit those throughout the webinar, and we'll have time at the end to answer those. We are live streaming this on LinkedIn as well, and the recording will be available on our resource portal. And now I'd love to introduce our speaker, Michael Hall, who is the father of two sons who are both high school teachers. Mr. Hall has been a special education teacher, a teacher of the gifted and talented, and an intermediate and middle school principal. As an educator, speaker, and founder of Strong Fathers, Strong Families, he's presented to more than 250,000 families, fathers and parents at local schools, Head Starts, and regional and national conferences. I had the honor of listening to a webinar from Mike not too long ago and enjoyed it so much I had to have a BranchEd to share his content with us and our community. As Strong Fathers, Strong Families is finishing its 20th school year. His programs are now reaching young dads who were once the children in his programs. Mike is also the co-host of Intentional Partnerships, a collaborative podcast in partnership with Lindsay Shaw and the National Center for Parents and Teachers. He's written 5 different fatherhood curricula and is presently working on his 6th. He is considered one of the country's foremost experts on working with fathers in low education and social service settings. Mike was honored as a 2012 White House Champion of Change for his pioneering work in fatherhood field around the nation. Mike, thank you for being with us today. We are thrilled to learn from you.
Well, thank you. The challenge is that's a really good intro and it's all true, but that's a lot of years. And so it's now like, man, I got to live up to that. So glad you guys are here. It was good to see some of you that I knew come up on chat. And you guys are what I would call gluttons for punishment. You've heard me, you've seen me, and you come back. So that I appreciate that. And we will talk about some of the stuff you've heard and some of the things that you haven't heard before. Also, for those of you that are new to some of the stuff that I do, we'll kind of talk about that real quick. Make sure I'm pushing all the right buttons. So who are these guys? Who's Strong Fathers, Strong Families? So what, like she said, Kim said, 250,000 dads. I think we're well over that in this year. Been busy running in the fall semester. We've got anywhere from 4 to 7 programs a week going on right now. That's where part of the gray hair comes from, is the miles. And over 45 states. And mainly with public ed. Also, when we first started outside of Texas was mainly Head Starts. And then we started doing public ed programs outside of that. So these are what I call my credentials. Both my sons, I raise very hairy boys. The one on the right is Jake. He is in Dallas. He's my oldest. He's in Dallas as a coordinator of, well, the word just went out of my head. But he coordinates, man, he's at W.T. White High School advisory. So they have an advisory period. He does that, provides all great information. He's got a cool YouTube channel for the kids and does a great job with that. The tall boy there, I have some questions, but he's too weird not to be mine. But for me to have a son that's 6'1", everybody's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, he's weird enough to know. He teaches in Huntsville, Arkansas, and lives up in the hills in a beautiful place. And so very proud of both of those boys. And I say that's my credentials as far as being a father and also when we talk about teachers. Here's something I want you to do. We're going to jump in. We're going to go hard, right? Here's what I want you to do in the chat. List 1 negative thing and 1 positive thing about your father. We went there all of a sudden. So this is not a Dr. Phil. I'm not going to try to address what you put in there, except as a whole, how those things come up. So in the chat, list 1 negative thing and 1 positive thing about your own father. He was absent but educated. Loving but not interested in education. Yeah, that's your mama's job, or however that came out, right? Can always call him to fix things, but he's not consistent. This kind of hurts my feelings too, because I'm thinking about what my kids would put. Always in my corner, trauma transference, alcoholic, but a good listener, played his emotions close to his vest. That's a dad thing. That's a man thing that I do some work outside of Strong Fathers with men to get in touch with all of that. Great provider, but stern. So let's see. Let's go here for a second. So positive, caring, negative, high expectations when it comes to education. My dad was absent. He's 75 and still here. And so sometimes we get a second chance at that, or dad get a second chance at that. I work with lots of dads that we have a 10-week course that I'm no longer teaching. Hard worker, but not emotional. Instill great qualities, does not connect or show emotions well. That is a man thing for sure. Not consistently, but it's something that like I said, we work on and we see. The cool part about this is when we get men around their children, some of this begins to change. So the reason I bring that up is not just to, make everybody cry all of a sudden, or like I said, it even affects me. I do this work all the time. Just showed you my sons, and I'm like, what would my sons put on that? And I have a good idea what the positive would be and the negative would be. Here's why I bring that up. This impacts the work we're talking about. whether you're instructing teachers, whether you are a teacher, whether you're leading teachers, whether you're the person actually doing the family engagement, this impacts your work. And so let's talk about what that looks like. So we know race is an issue, culture is an issue, gender is an issue, and all kind of things around that right now. We have to understand our background is an issue. Where we come, when we talk about family engagement, like you may or may not have been good in science. You may or may not have been good in math. You may or may not have struggled or not struggled with English language arts, right? Or physical activities in PE. So you may not bring some of that stuff to your work. When we talk about family engagement, we all came from a family. We all have some sort of family now that shades our work. And so when I first started doing this work, what we found was there was this resistance, and we knew there was some stereotypes. We knew there were some numbers out there, but we also have to understand that part of the thing that was out there was our own stuff. I will tell you in a very short form, I had a really good dad, and my dad caused big T trauma and little T trauma. I'm still glad I had my dad. Some of that did definitely impact me. I've done work around it, still doing work around it, but it shaded my work as well. My job as a father shaded my work. And so the one thing you need to know is if you did not like your father, did not have a good relationship with him, that impacts your work. If you had a great, or it's either your father or the father of your kids, that also impacts that, particularly as a female, as we're bringing in hairy guys. If you have feelings about hairy guys that are not always positive, there's a negative bias there. Here's what I want you to know. I'm not trying to change that. I'm not trying to tell you not to have those feelings, because those are real. That's reality. Those are the things that you've dealt with. Not trying to get you to erase that at all. Absolutely not. And actually, some people are very driven by the fact of what they didn't have. I'm one of the few guys in the fatherhood field nationally that talks well of my father because I had that. It's almost like, why am I in this work? Because I didn't come from a fatherless home. I knew my father, my grandfather. I live on a street named after my great-grandfather, who I knew like for 18 years. I was 18 when my great-grandfather passed. He lived to be 104. But I still have some negative bias because, life is real. But also some of you would need to think about your positive bias. So a man walks in with his child into your school. He's this father. He may not be the same skin color. He may not be the same age. He may not be all those things. But you had a really good dad. So it's like, oh, I had a great dad. Yeah, but now you're looking at these guys going, that's not what a good dad looks like, because I know what my dad looks like this. Yeah, your dad was a great guy. Or your dad is a great guy. You're like, my dad's great. Yeah, he's 65. Of course he's great. You've moved out. When you were 5 and your dad was 25 or 23 or 30 or however, he might not have been a great dad. He might have really struggled, like some of particularly the young fathers or fathers of young kids we see walking in. We're like, that guy's really struggling in his role. Yeah, most of us do at some level, right? I was very blessed to have a good dad. So some of this, my good part of fathering was very natural because I already had a role model, and we know guys are struggling with that. But we all kind of note negative bias, like this is where I'm coming from. I kind of got to deal with it. But there's also a positive bias, right? Like I had a great dad, and these guys aren't great dads. Yeah, they don't watch them. They may be a better father at 26 than your father was for you at 26. But you don't know it because like, oh, my dad was it. Yeah, we have those good and bad memories that we do that. The other thing is assumptions. When I start talking about bringing fathers into school, everybody says, oh, I bet that's hard. It's not. I had a small group yesterday because they didn't get the materials that I sent them, or that I didn't send the materials. We're trying to figure that out. But we still had a crowd, but not as big a crowd as I would expect. And most days, most evenings, I'm filling up cafeterias with our programs because when dads are invited, they show up. So the assumptions are no dads are around, but the numbers we've looked at lately is 73% of the kids in our country have a 2-parent home. It's not always their biological father, may not be their biological mother, but 73% of the kids coming to your school right now on a national level, all races, 73% of them are in a 2-parent home. We know how many of our families are blended families. My anecdotal information is about 80% of the families I deal with, because I work in Title I schools, Head Starts, tend to be in more low-income neighborhoods. Those family, and it's the same in high-income neighborhoods too, but about 80%, this is my own experience, not numbers, are blended families, his, hers, his and hers, or his, hers, and ours, right? But there are more kids out there that are in two-parent homes, and people will say, well, what about, so there are people in my field that they talk about how many kids go to bed without their father in the home. That's definitely true, but they have access to their father on a regular basis. So we can take the numbers and we use those however we want. But many of our kids have two parents in the home. They have access to their father if it's not their father that's in the home. And so one of the studies we've looked at is 65% of kids in inner city Head Start have regular access to their father. But that's not the narrative that goes on. And what I found is some of the people that I work with, they're not in the business for solutions. They get paid because they talk about the problem. We want to talk about solutions, and we also want to talk about how does that fit within our teacher training. And so I'm not just trying to make you an advocate for father engagement. I want to talk about how we go. So real quick in the chat, look at this picture and tell me what you see. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can make that bigger right now. I was going to make that. But talk to me in chat about what you see. Work trucks, and some of you have seen this picture because I show this picture in almost everything I do. And I've got other ones. I need to stretch it out a little bit. So this is Plano ISD Head Start. This is several years ago now. We had 140 kids in the program. We had 108 dads show up. They're all going to work. Yes. In Spanish, it says, well, desayuno con papá. Now, if you know Spanish, we don't have accent marks on marquees. And so that instead of saying breakfast with dad, because there's no accent mark, it actually says breakfast with potato. But luckily la gente sabe. And so they all knew what we meant. We're like, I don't think they're just advertising breakfast with potatoes. So yeah, breakfast with dad, bring your dad to Head Start was the official title, way too big. But yeah, Spanish on one side, English on the other. That's a very important point. But people say, oh, our dads work, they can't come. These dads are going to work, but they came by school first. And so, yeah, you see the Spanish, but okay, so you say the sign accommodates Spanish speakers. Yeah, all the time. Spanish on one side, English on the other, all the time. But this one actually accommodates fathers, right? And so I want you to begin to think about, wait, why is that important? Okay, so no matter what race, no matter what ethnicity, half your parents are fathers. Say, well, not all of them around. 100% of your kids in your school or program have a father somewhere. My dad taught biology for 17 years. I can explain that if you want, but it's very awkward even on a webinar. Now, we know that many kids don't have their dad around. That's one of the reasons we do this, but fathers will come and we'll talk about that. So let's talk about why do we want to see this? What's going on? Why is this important in education? And so real quick, dads are less likely to rescue. Why is that good? Well, they let them handle more frustration than mom. Many of us dads get in trouble for that. Help him. He's fine. Help him. When he gets strong enough, he'll get that couch off his chest. He'll be fine. We get in trouble for it, and sometimes we should get in trouble. Sometimes we're stretching a little bit too much. But what we know is fathers who support their children in less. I got to go backwards. Let me change that real quick. Now you're seeing behind the curtain. I hate that part. Let's show you real quick. All right. So children of involved fathers tend to have a greater tolerance for stress and frustration. They're able to be one of many in the classroom, deal with not being the center of the universe. Wouldn't we love to have those kids in our school? And so they maintain focus on their classwork and they have confidence to work on their own. Why is that important? Because dads rescue less than moms. Why is that important? Because frustration is inherent to learning. Kids that only have mom around or only have mom engaged tend to get rescued more. If dad's engaged, they tend to get rescued less. Because they're rescued less, they have more tolerance for frustration and stress. Why is that important? Frustration is inherent to learning. If you don't have frustration, you don't have learning, you just have practice. And so we see kids that really struggle with that. And I can, from my experience, be in a room and tell you, sometimes it's mom and dad that are rescuing too much. Many times it's only mom that's rescuing and dad's not engaged or not there. But when we see kids that have dads that say, you can do it, you're fine. And, sometimes we get in trouble for that. Those kids do better in our classroom. So look at what's going on in this picture. So all the pictures you're going to see are actual pictures from all of our work for the last 21 years. This is a math night. at Basswood Element, not Basswood, but Caprock Elementary in Keller, Texas. I'll be at one of those schools tonight. And it's math night, and PTA sold dollar pizza and dollar drinks or something like that. So they sit down, and dad's letting this kid try to open the Coke. You see the frustration. Now, I took the picture, and so what the dad finally did was reach around the kid, use the kid's hand and say, look, you push it up real hard, and then you pull it back, and then you can drink out of it. Moms, got a lot of moms on here today. If you sit your kids down anywhere, particularly at a school event, with pizza and Coke, what is the first thing you do as soon as you sit down? Now, we know what dads do. We sit down and take a bite because we're hungry. It's probably what this dad did. But you open all the Cokes. I've had my wife open mine, right? It's like, I think I got it. Thanks. It's all good. And so they let them handle frustration more. Now, the other part I want you to notice about this picture, this is not a Western themed math night. This kid knew he was going to math night. Dad said, go get ready. He comes out in his cowboy hat, his vest, his shorts, and his boots. I was a little jealous that he got to wear his shorts and boots. And what did the dad say when he came out? He goes, all right, let's go. Get in the car. Moms, the kid comes to the door in his cowboy hat, vest, and boots, and his shorts. And it's not a Western themed math night. Everybody I talked to said, we're sending him back. Dad's like, I don't care. You're dressed. Let's go. That's another issue with the dads, right? And so fathers who support their children in less conventional ways have daughters who are more successful in school, work, and career, and sons who eventually achieve more academically. Eventually achieve more is really, it's just very interesting to me because we know the challenge we have in school with boys. And I believe we do a better job of that now, but we still have some room to grow. But dads who used to be young boys are actually really great advocates for our boys in school. That was my job with my two sons, to understand what they needed to do and also what they were going to do, right? And so, so we see that with what's going on. So when dads are engaged, boys score higher on intelligence tests. And again, they advocate for their sons. Girls who have a close, warm relationship with their father have a stronger competency in math. And Norma Radden, who did this study, also did one on science. And so what we know, when dads are physically engaged, like hugs, high fives, wrestle with their daughters like they wrestle with their sons, these girls are more likely to do better in math and science. Let's talk about why. So dad's number one job is to tell his daughter, you're beautiful. Now, before you blow up the chat and tell me women are more than that, absolutely agree. But a girl's number one question is, do you delight in me? You don't believe me? Put a 3-year-old girl in her ballerina outfit. Oh, that just ran through. Put a baby girl in her ballerina outfit and say, go show your parents. Who's she showing? Right? She's showing her mom. No, she's running to dad. So I did a training with parents as teachers. I'm waiting for that to come up. I didn't know it was still running. Another technical glitch. I asked 240 women in this conference session, if your mother told you you were beautiful, would you believe it? And I guarantee it, 220 simultaneously said no. I said, why wouldn't you believe that? Well, that's my mom. She has to tell me that. Well, what if your dad told me? Yeah, dad don't have to tell me nothing. And so his first job is to say you're beautiful. Right. And that's what he's supposed to do. But his other job, which is very important as well, you're smart and you can do anything you want. And when that happens, then girls don't believe the negative cultural norms about themselves, about their bodies, about what they see in videos, what they see on magazines, because that's a voice, not their mom, is saying you are beautiful and you are smart and you can do anything. Here's how to shoot the ball. Here's how to hit the ball. Here's how to whoop every butt on the block. And that's dad's very important job. Okay, so as we see that, we have to understand dad's role in that really changes what girls experience in school. That's not just a she won't find the wrong boyfriend thing that we talk about, or she may not become a teen pregnancy. It is she will do better academically in school because she has somebody believing in her differently, right? It empowers our young ladies. When fathers are involved in the early life of children, 18 months to 3 years, children are less likely to have separation anxiety from the mother or father. I see this in schools all the time, right? Preschoolers with involved fathers have stronger verbal skills with those in less involved fathers. So ladies, many of you do not, particularly in early childhood, you don't use baby talk to talk to your kids, but you use a different tone and a different vocabulary, even sometimes with your older children. Dads do not change their tone. Sometimes we get in trouble for that. And we don't change our vocabulary sometimes when we should. But because dads don't change their tone and vocabulary when dads are around with these kids have a higher vocabulary and they're more comfortable being spoken to or speaking to adults, which is also important in the academic realm. And so those dads, that's very important for dads to do. Now, when moms read to kids, we know this is important. Kids learn to read, they learn to love to read, they learn to love books, right? We know it's important for moms to read to kids. Norma Radden, the one that did the earlier study that I talked about, also did one of these. This is where I've used this study for years. We were actually studying, does it make a difference if parents read to their kids at home? We had so much belief in our public school system in the late 60s and 70s. We're like, does it really matter? Yeah, it absolutely matters. And so what Norma studied was kids that didn't have anybody reading to them, kids that had parents reading to them at home. Those two groups. Of course, the kids that had parents reading to their home, their scores were much higher. But in that group, there was another group that was even higher than that. And when they looked at it, it wasn't that they just had somebody reading to them. They had both mom and dad reading to them. So controlling for mom's contribution to that, those kids that had dads read to them had higher scores. So when dads read to kids, they learn to read. They learn to love to read. They learn to love books. But when dads read to kids, their kids' verbal skills can go up by up to 15%, which doesn't happen when moms read to them. You want to talk about some controversy. When I do that, mom's like, I can read. I know you can read, but it's not better, but it's different. When moms read, many of our teachers that read in class are moms or read like a mom. And the big bad wolf said, little pig, let me in. Kids are asleep. Kids are enamored. Kids love it when moms read to them. When dads read to kids, we tend to read differently. And when we read, we'll say, Lo malo dijo, cerdito, cerdito, habla. And the kids are screaming, and mom's going, what's going on? And dad says, I'm reading. And mom says, not like that. And you're like, no, exactly like that. Now, what moms want me to tell dads is, I'm with the research. Yeah, I want them to read like a dad. I just don't want them to get them all jacked up right before bed and then send them to me to put down, which I talk to my dads about all the time. So when dads read to kids, it is different. It's not better, not worse. They have stronger verbal skills. They become strong readers. So this one is one we hung our hat on when we first started Strong Fathers. Children whose fathers are highly involved in their school are more likely to do well academically, enjoy school, less likely to have ever repeated a grade or been expelled than children whose fathers are not involved. The whole reason I started Strong Fathers was because of this. So when dads are involved in school, they know who the teacher is. They talk to children about school regularly. They attend 2 to 3 school events a year. Not volunteer, not attend 10 events, but the research on 25,000 successful students was when the dad knows who the teacher is, asks questions on the regular, and attends 2 to 3 school events a year, these kids do better. And like I said, the reason I started Strong Fathers was I had kids coming in my office as a middle school principal, and what would happen is they either had no father in the home that we understood, academic or behavior problems. We understood if they had no dad in the home, that was a problem, that was a deficit. But we had a ton of kids that had dads at home that we would never see. They weren't engaged in their education. And my assumption at the time was these guys don't care. No, what we found out was nobody was inviting them or letting them know how important they were. And so this research came out about that time, and that's what got us started on all of this. So when dads are involved, kids are more likely to get A's and B's, less likely to repeat a grade, more likely to be involved in extracurricular activities, less likely to get in trouble in the office, which was our goal as a middle school. And so when we look at that, when dads are involved, when they share meals, when they spend leisure time, when they help with homework and reading, we have higher academic success. And this is not pie in the sky. That would be sweet stuff. This is empirical data that we have a pretty good set of, right? We don't have as much new research coming in as I would like, but we see this over and over. The research continues to bear truth. We see it over and over on the field. And every time we see that, we get all kind of great stories from our schools about this kid started doing better because dad was, this was a long time ago, spelling test. Dad's the project guy. Dad's the one that makes sure they get here on time when he found out they weren't getting there on time. Just different things like that. So dads can be your go-to person. And so dads need to be involved in a very specific way. And it's imperative that we do that. Now, we don't have time here for us to train on all of that. But we definitely want to talk. Kim did ask you, while we're going to finish up with some questions, because I know when I've spouted all this stuff, some of you are like, come on now. So continue to put questions in the chat and we will deal with that. I'm going to transition here a little bit and change up. Like I said, I didn't like having you see all the behind the curtain issues that we got going on. But let's talk about, dads need to be involved in a specific way, and we talk about it being imperative. So what are we trying to do with fathers and families? Now, I do this all over the country. I'm in a couple of groups that a lot of what we would call fathers in education groups. Everything we do at Strong Fathers is academic. Bring your dad to school day, getting dads into the classroom, letting them see what a modern classroom actually looks like with iPads and Chromebooks and smart TVs and, independent study and all these different things that are going on that didn't go on when we were in school. And the other part is some programs are doing volunteer, some dudes are doing breakfast. But my bottom line is, how are we impacting kids academically? And some of that works and some of that doesn't work. It's all good stuff, but what are we trying to do at Strong Fathers? And it goes back to what you guys are talking about. So the differences in pre-service teacher attitude change about family involvement across 4 universities. A really good study, some really cool stuff. But what I wanted to pull from that, and this is something that most of you know that are doing this work, let me kind of get way out of the way here. Early childhood, preschool, and kindergarten programs that train parents to work with their children at home produce significant positive effects on grades and ratings from teachers the longer the children were in the program, which, by the way, every kid should be in this program. For older children, weekly homework assignments that required work with parents were associated with improved grades for elementary and middle school students. That's a challenge, but it's a challenge because we haven't asked the parents in to come do this. Now, let's talk about what that means. When I talk to schools, I'm like, what are you doing for family engagement? Well, we have a carnival and we have a spaghetti supper. And I'm like, what are you doing to help parents help your kids? Well, we do these things. Well, it's something we've done forever, but how are you helping parents help their kids? And what I find is we either do nothing or nothing of consequence, spaghetti suppers and carnivals, or we're trying to get our parents to become like 5th grade testing masters. And we have experts in the classroom. That is our hope. That's who we're trying to raise up here. We don't need parents to be experts on their 1st grader, 3rd grader, 5th grader. We need parents to be able to support the kids while they're doing the stuff that we're doing in the classroom. So one of my things is nobody ever improved their reading because of a spaghetti supper. Spaghetti supper is a great community builder, maybe a great fundraiser, maybe a great climate, improvement. But this is not what we should be doing with family engagement. Title I family engagement, after school family engagement, all the things that we're funding in family engagement should be for better outcomes for kids. And I see a ton of programs that there's no way that's impacting that at all. All right. So what I want to make sure we're talking about when we talk about family engagement, yes. And the research that I just showed you talked about how people maybe pre-service teachers were trained about parent conferences, some about cultural diversity, which is also not always true because there's some stereotypes there, but also not like when we work with dads across the board. I got black dads, brown dads, white dads. I got dads that speak English. I've got one school that's got 12 African nations represented. Well, those are all Africans. I'm telling you, East and West, and Northeast, Southern Africa, not the same dudes. That's a huge continent, right? So we also don't impact those guys, which are very different than African Americans, right? Which are very different than Hispanics, depending on where they're coming from, Latinos with 27 Spanishes. But what we're focused on is the culture of parents and the culture of dads. And we've got enough work to do right now that we don't have to split that out into 27 different dad programs because we're focusing dads on their kids and nobody doesn't come to that, right? And so we want to make sure that what we're talking about is improving child outcomes. So how do we do this? Everything we do is interactive. So we do everything is dad and kids interacting together. Dads just don't want to sit and get. It's got to be relational. Dad is learning to relate better to his child. Dads and kids are learning to relate better to other dads and kids in school. And so they're getting to know people, they're getting to work together, they're sitting by each other, not just looking up front, but they're all working on things at the table. Particularly when dads come to the classroom and they're all in their 1st graders classroom. The fun part is on a night program, dads of daughters particularly, they don't get to pick where they sit. Baby girl finds her friends and she drags her dad to her friend's table who dragged her dad to that table. And all of a sudden you've got 3 to 5 second grade girls that are best friends and their dads are there, but those dads are getting to know each other, and they should, because they're going to be raising these girls together for many years, maybe forever, right? Maybe what I tell them, I said, the girl that you sit by tonight that was friends to your daughter may be in the wedding of your daughter. Do you understand how important this relationship is? And it scares the dads to death. So that's okay too. And then relevant. How's this actually helping me? If you have me come and just watch something, I don't know how this helps. So, interactive, relational, relevant is how we're doing that. This is a math night. This is actually at Caprock Elementary. This is a science night in Duncanville, which is just south of Dallas. Oh, no, actually, this is a math night. And you see that moms come. Now, everything we do is dad and kid math. But in the RSVP, it lets anybody that wants, we don't exclude anybody. Mom wants to come. Many times our Latino families, mom and dad are there. Y abuelita, y tío, y todos está allá casa. So they're coming. All right. So this is what we do on a regular. So we're helping parents help their kids do math. So here's a dad with 2 kids in different grades playing math games. Yeah, it's not. People say, how does this comply with our testing standards? It doesn't. It's math. I don't need this guy to know everything about testing standards. But when dads help kids with their math fluency, our results are better. When dads help their kids play games in math, they get more comfortable helping kids with homework. And we get to explain why we do what we do with homework at this campus when they're here for this fun math night. So this is not fluff. This is giving them tools. And they actually take these cards home with instructions. They've played them, they've had a good time, and then we tell them, take these home and play with them more. And so this is several pictures, dads, and I want you to see the diversity here. I don't go anywhere where we don't have dads. If it's a 40-40-20 school, 40% African-American, 40% Hispanic, 20% Anglo, 40% Anglo, 40% Hispanic, 20% African-American. I have schools that are so diverse, it's 10-10-10-10-10. That's how my dads show up. I don't have a group of dads that doesn't show up based on, like, if it's 98% African-American, we still get a large crowd. And even that 2 or 3%, whether it be Hispanic or Asian or whoever may be in that community, those guys show up too. When we invite dads, they show up. So let's talk real quick about why we're doing what we're doing and what we're looking for. So okay. I'm not a very good weatherman with my green screens. I'm like, I think I'm pointing the right direction. The very first thing we want to do, and I would tell you, I think the most important thing we do in family engagement is connect the father and or the mom to their child. I always ask professionals when I'm doing professional training, how many of you have parents that think their kids are smarter than they are? Now raise their hand. He's really smart. He's only 2.5, but he knows all his letters. No, he doesn't. Oh yeah, he knows his letters. He couldn't pick an A out of a lineup of A's, but he knows the song, which is still great for a 2.5-year-old, but he don't know all his letters. Elemento is not a letter, right? But he knows the song, which is great because many of you still alphabetize things like I do by singing the song. There it is, right? But we want them to see how their child is, number one, at that level, number two, among their peers. Like, what do you know about your kid? Watch your kid perform something that we're trying to teach them. Watch them in class, watch them do math, watch them do science in amongst their peers or kids in their school. Then we do bring your dad to school where dads see what the classroom looks like, right? And then we talk about what we're teaching. But here's what the problem. We'll have a testing night to talk about what's being tested in your child's grade, but they don't know their kid and their capabilities or lack of capabilities, lack of capacity, and they don't know how we do this in the classroom. So they do one of two things. This is easy. My kid can do all this. Not all the time they can't. Or there's no way my kid can do this higher level stuff. Yeah, they are, because your kid's capable. And the way we're teaching in the classroom makes this content very manageable, conquerable. And then here's what we do on the campus. This is what we need out of families. This is what we want out of families. And then we have, oh, there goes my finger, right? Then we have parent community. And then when we talk about volunteer and leadership, we want to get those folks, but if they haven't gone through this pyramid, they're not going to be good leaders. Like many of the people in Head Start that I work with that are former Head Start parents are really good on staff or as a policy council member because they've made this journey. I know we've got some folks on here that are advocates for special ed families. Our best families are the ones that know their kid, know the classroom, what we're providing and not providing. They know that, where it is on the IEP and the content. They know the campus, how their campus treats this kid. And then they become really good leaders, either because they're fired up about what's not going on, or they're fired up because they do see what's going on, or they're getting that to happen. So when we talk about family engagement, this is one of the things we want to see for all of our families, but even more so for our dads, because that's what I do, is if a dad knows how his kid acts and reacts, if they know how the things are in the classroom, if they realize that what we're teaching is not just math to make parents mad at night, but there's a reason we teach what we teach the way we teach. And this is how we run our campus and our expectations. We get better kids out of the fact that we've got parents that are on all of these jobs. All right. So I wanted to show you that. This is real quick, just a couple of things. This is Renee. Renee lives in San Antonio. His son lives in Van. His son is actually, I think, a senior this year. This is an old picture. Renee drove 5.5 hours from San Antonio to Van to be at his kid's program. He did that 4 times this year that we took this picture. Drove up for 5.5, drove back 5.5 to be at his kid's program. In El Paso, I was in elementary. I said, who traveled from somewhere else to be here for Bring Your Dad to School Day? Guy raises his hand. He says, Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's a long way from El Paso. By the way, everything is a long way from El Paso. Texas is a long way from El Paso, and it's in Texas. But this guy raised a hand. He said, Vladnikov. And I'm like, what part of Texas is that in? He had come from basically Russia. He was a military contractor, jumped a C-130 to Germany, jumped another military plane to Jersey, jumped a Delta flight from Jersey to be in El Paso on a Friday morning, was going to be home for the weekend and go back to work on Monday. This young man right here was at Camp Lemonnier, depending on how you say it. People say it different. And he took a 7-day pass. He took a 7-day pass so he could be at his preschool kids' Bring Your Dad to School Day. He didn't say, I'll be there next year. I'll come when I can. He took a 7-day pass. It's 2 days from Africa to the States, the beating of a trip. He has 3 days at home. The middle day is Bring Your Dad to School Day. And he came from Djibouti. Now, when we found that out, we're like, yeah, we got to take a picture. Now, Winona ISD is just east of Dallas. They love for me to tell this story. They're not real fond of the fact that I go, man, Winona had dads coming out of Djibouti, but I'm 12, and I think that's hilarious. Real quick, we've got some resources we're going to share with you. We have early childhood activity calendars. We have questions to ask your kid instead of what'd you do at school today. We provide those in English and Spanish each month. Every month there's numeracy, literacy, math, social studies, questions around movement, art, all those things, leadership in our questions for our elementary and middle school kids. And we're going to make those available to you. Also would love to talk to you about some other resources for those of you that are teaching teachers. We've got some resources from the research that we've done we'd like to provide. You can go to strongfathers.live/branch, or you can hit that QR code if that's handy to you. So I've seen some questions up, Kim. I'll let you pick the ones that maybe we need to look at.
First, Mike, thank you. As always, you made me smile, you made me think, and you stretched we have some good questions around father involvement and family involvement. The first one is around funding. And if you don't have funding for programs like this, what do you suggest are our next steps or recommendations for engaging fathers?
So if you have money for family engagement, believe it or not, fathers are part of your families. So when we first started with Head Start, they poured a ton of money, really kind of, it was not well done. But it was, a lot of us have doing this work now because what we learned from there, but they poured a ton of money in it, hired people that didn't know what they were doing, but they had to have somebody. And so they spent this money. We were buying TVs and turkeys because they didn't think dads would come if we didn't do that, which was false. And then when that money dried up, they said, oh, we can't do fathers anymore. And I'm like, you have family involvement money. Parenting involvement is what we called it at the time, right? In Title I, Title III, because we do everything in English and Spanish, Title V for rural schools, all of your after-school money, what we call ACE, after-school money has a family engagement component that can fund these programs. I've done most of my work, paid most of my rent from Title I and or Head Start PFCE requirements. And this meets those goals. So there's family engagement money. Also, we've made this, unless you're calling me out or I got a flyer drive or whatever and bring the supplies, we've made this very affordable for people to learn from our manuals and stuff. But see, everybody thinks fathers are different than families, and you have family engagement money. And so you can use that. And here's the thing, when you engage fathers, you will begin to see more moms. I can do another hour on that. But when you get more families by bringing dads in, then the family comes along. And there's several reasons for that. But the money is there, but it's what you are. And it's honestly, not just because we're doing it, it's a better use of money because of the impact you get.
Thank you for that insight there around funding. The next question we have is around, we have a lot of higher ed faculty, higher ed administrators. That's a lot of our core community here at Branch Ed. And we were talking before we started recording, for those folks who don't have programs, courses within their studies around family engagement and father engagement particularly, what do you suggest are some like places they can go, resources they can use? What's the first step there in adding some of this content?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that when people find out, and some of this is through schools and stuff, like teachers and or people doing grad work are always hitting me up about what's the research about fathers. And so one of the things I'll do if you sign up on the list, I'm going to just cite and cite and cite. And if you guys are like me, I go to those citations and look at what they cited. And there's actually more research out there that and I use all the time. It's what you saw in my presentation. I wrote a book chapter for a book called Why Fathers Count. It was very lucrative. I got a free book out of the deal. Some of you that get published know how much money you haven't made from writing a book or a chapter. But I can provide that chapter with all the citations in that. One of the things I'd love to see folks in higher ed do is, man, to have a whole class on this would be great. I know we don't have that kind of structure and time, but those of you that are teaching family engagement, we'd love to give you resources to slide this into that. But all kind of things about just programming and diversity. Dads are part of that diversity, and dads in each one of these cultures that you study is also a part of that diversity. And there's some challenges and barriers, but there's also some opportunities there. So, the other thing I'd like to do, Kim, is continue this conversation, particularly with higher ed people, of let me get you some stuff. Let's look at it and let's talk about what are the best ways to resource your pre-service teachers. I've got some videos, got a TED Talk, stuff like that. But that's the other thing we can begin to provide is even this video could speak to those folks of this is why we want to get fathers involved. So I'm really excited about those things. But yeah, there's more research out there. Michael Lamb wrote a huge book on father engagement, or not just on father engagement. Some of my friends out of Minnesota wrote a great book about father engagement in early childhood. Those are very academic, but they're very good. And then you can already tell I'm not very academic. So we're going to give you some on the street, in the field stuff to provide to your teachers, which also I think would be important as well.
We have one last question, and this really does deal with more of the research. And it's Barbara who wants to know, I think she's coming from a community organization. What do we tell moms about rough play and teasing kids? Some of my clients hate that in the death. To see more of this.
Barbara, thanks for the question. So when I first started, this was the thing. We talked about this all the time. And the value, just exactly what I told you about what dads do for daughters through rough and tumble play. They help kids handle frustration. They help kids regulate their emotions. You want to talk about some of the bigger challenges we have in the classroom right now is kids cannot regulate their aggression. They cannot regulate their emotions. When dads wrestle and play with kids in that microcosm of the house and do that on a regular basis, these kids are more regulated in their emotions. They're less aggressive. When you see kids, I call it the playground frenzy, right? When they get to playing and kids don't know how to handle that, they just, I call it the Tasmanian devil. A lot of that, and particularly kids that we would even think would be and possibly are with emotional disturbance, a lot of it is they haven't learned how to regulate that. So first off, kids aren't going to die. The kids probably not going to go to the emergency room. But when dads get engaged, they get better at that and their kids get better. And so we really promote that, particularly in early childhood programs. Yes, get on the floor with your kid, wrestle with your kid. When you throw them in the air, that's okay. Even though mom's going to have a fit, mom's job is to protect. I have a whole training on this. Mom's job is to protect. Dad's job is to get that kid ready for life outside the home and outside of that protection. And so there's tons of research about the value of that. That's something we can provide. But our best learners are coming from an environment where they have that rough and tumble play because of being able to handle frustration, being able to manage their own aggression and their own emotions. So I can get you, you don't need a full report to give to the mom, but we have some stuff that you can say, this is what the research says, and when moms hear it, when I train a ton of women, and I had one lady, she goes, okay, I'll let dad wrestle with the kids. And I'm like, your kids are like 12 and 14. And she goes, no, they still do it. I just don't allow it. But I said, your kids are great. And he goes, yeah. And now you're telling me they're great, not just because I'm a good mom, absolutely, but also dad, who didn't listen to me, wrestled with my kids. And so, yeah, it's definitely one of those things that happens.
Thank you so much. Mike, I see your email here. Folks can reach out to you, I imagine, if they have questions.
Absolutely. Anything we can do. Emails and calls are free. We'll set up anything to help you guys work with fathers and families as well.
Thank you so much for sharing this. There are already questions around the resources. We will be posting them in our follow-up email to all registrants. So we'll share those out there as well. And you can sign up for Mike's newsletter to get some of his goodies on a monthly basis. Thank you all so much. Before we sign off, and Mike, thank you so much for sharing all of this content with us. And these ideas. Before you sign off, if you'd like to further engage with this topic, you can do that on Twitter with Branch Ed. We would love to meet you there. We've captured some highlights from this webinar, and we would love to connect with you. You can find us at Branch Alliance. In addition to learn more about events like this one, please connect with us on social media, our website, and our resource portal. I've had some folks reach out already. Where can I find this recording? It will be on our resource portal, and you can also see it on LinkedIn right now. It's live streaming there. Our next upcoming event is on February 21st. It's a virtual workshop from 1 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. Where we will we'll focus on strategies, tools, and resources to cultivate community and build meaningful relationships. You can register using the QR code on the screen or visit our website, and you can go to our events page there to register. Our next webinar is in March. It is on the educational ecosystem from all directions, and it will be a conversation with Dr. Eduardo Padron. You can register using the QR code on the screen, or again, visit our events page. Lastly, we would love to hear about your experience today here with us. There's a brief poll that's going to pop up on your screen. If you can quickly fill that out for us, we would love to have some feedback. Thank you so much. We have enjoyed this time with you today. We can't wait to see you again. Again, Mike, thanks so much for sharing this content with us. And we'll see y'all next month for our next.
The Branch Alliance for Educator Diversity is a network of high-impact, high-performing institutions that are seeking to change the way that we prepare teachers for a changing America.
We know that having diverse teachers helps all students, and we know that the demographics of the students in this country are changing at a quick rate.
There's a level of expertise and knowledge that MSI faculty and institutions have, and we can use that knowledge and experience to better teacher preparation for not just minority students, but for all teacher candidates.
We know studies suggest that when children see themselves in their classrooms, when they see themselves in text, that they value who they are even more.
I've been working with minority-serving institutions for a long time now, and they're places where students really are part of the fabric of the institution. They don't just go there and pay for an education. They are a community. They are a family.
Now is the time that we must come together and come up with a foundational understanding of what we intend to do.
Branch Ed is helping MSIs develop these unique aspects of their programs.
We want to make sure that we are creating a community for all teachers who come from very diverse backgrounds.
The Branch Alliance for Educator Diversity was formed to strengthen and grow educator preparation at minority-serving institutions. It's so critical that these institutions are a part of the solution of diversifying our nation's teaching force, as they currently prepare a disproportionate number of teachers of color in our classrooms. It's not just about their production of teachers, it's also about their expertise and experience in training educators who can bring about student outcomes for all children.